Hello friends, welcome to our class. Now we are going to start class notes of Vision IAS. Polity. Let's see. Need of Constitution. The natural tendency of any society is to be moved towards the entropy. Example, towards destruction, anarchy or lawlessness. Less. Human beings are always guided by its self-interested. There is a very possibility that this self-interest can easily transfer itself into a selfish interest. It can lead to explanation, manipulation, and so on. Prevent societies from the entropy and also prevent exploitation and the manipulation. A constitution is necessary. It can protect the right and freedoms of the citizen, prevent exploitation, and make governments accountable to the people for their performance. It can ultimately ensure a strict implementation of rule of law. The survival of any civilization depends on the ability of its administrative systems to protect and promote the welfare of its citizens. It is possible only with a written constitution. Historical underpinning. Regulating acts were introduced to expert the control of the British Parliament over the East India Company under Parliamentary reform introduced in 1909. Communal electorates were introduced under the Government of India Act of 1919. Transferred and the reserved subjects were introduced. Simon Commission's recommendation led to the Round Table Conference. Outcome of the Round Table Conference led to the introduction of the Government of India Act of 1935. It introduced this A. Parliamentary form of democracy. Second, federal form of government. C. Bicameral legislature. D. Independent judiciary. E. Division of power. Class 2nd. Constitutional development, constitution and constitutionalism. Democracy versus dictatorship. In a dictatorship, the king is sovereign, has the absolute power, and no one can limit the power. People are only subjects and they do not have the rights. In a democracy, the government is accountable to the people through the process of election. They enjoy power till they enjoy the confidence of the people. The essence of democracy is the rule of law. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, a constitution does not means only a rule book. It also defines the soul of a nation. It defines that the nation stands for right for citizens, protecting the freedom of citizen sovereignty, rule-based governance. What is the constitution? Dictation. India has opted for a written constitution. The constitution may be defined as the soul of a nation, as rightly pointed out by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Uh, For uh, uh, for first time, PM Constitution reflects the desires, wishes, and dreams, needs, and demands of the people of the country. It is not a mere rule book. It defines the rights of citizen and the responsibilities of the state. It defines the relationship between the citizens and the state. The state is made responsible to protect and the freedoms and the right of citizens. Constitutions also defines the relationship between the three organs of the state, including the legislature, executive, and judiciary. India has opted for a written constitution for the following reason. 1. India is an ancient nation but a very young country. Second, in its 5,000 year old history, India never had experience with the functioning of democracy. C. Third, without a written constitution, it would be almost impossible to protect democratic systems. 4. A strict implementation of rule of law is possible only with a written constitution. 5. A written constitution can also help in the resolving any disputes or the conflicts that may come up in the future. 6. Since at the time of independence, maximum number of people in our country were poor and illiterate, the country could easily go into the hands of the dictator without a written constitution. 7. A written constitution is also necessary to protect democratic system. Constitutional development. Constitutional development in India can be traced back the East India Company rule. From 1773 towards, the British Parliament passed the regulating acts after every 20 years till 1853. After the War of Independence in 1857, the political boundary in India was transferred from EIC to British Crown. From 1858 to 1947, mainly legislation were passed to bring constitutional governance. 1861 Indian Council Act introduced the concept of the separation of powers in India. Administration. It has separated the power of the legislature from the executives. 1892 Indian Council Act increased the number of the non-official member in the central legislature. 1909 Indian Council Act expanded the power of legislature wherein the members were allowed to ask supplementary questions. It also provided opportunities for Indians to become part of the Viceroy Executive Council. 1919 The Government of India Act gradually introduced a responsible government in India. It introduced diarchy in the provinces, but the experiments was not successful. 1935 The Government of India Act can be considered a very significant development in the evolution of the constitutional democracy in India. It has ultimately become the basis of our constitution. Making of the constitution. For the first time, it was M.N. Roy who had the brought up this idea of the Constituent Assembly. Finally, the Constituent Assembly was constituted in November 1946 under the Cabinet Mission Plan. The total strength of the Constituent Assembly was 389. Out of the 296 seats were allocated to British India and 93 seats princely estate. Princely estates would nominate their members. Constituent Assembly had both elected members as well as nominated members, and it had the representatives from the section of the society. The first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held on the 9th December 1946. Muslim League boycotted the meeting as it was the demanding the separate state of Pakistan. Dr. Sachidanand Sinha, the oldest member of Constituent Assembly, was elected as the temporary president of Assembly. Later, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of the Assembly. Apart from the framing the constitution, it also performed other functions. It ratified Indians' membership of the Commonwealth in May 1949. It adopted the national flag, national anthem, and national song. It elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first president of India. With the partition of India, Muslim League members had the withdrawn themselves from the Constituent Assembly. The strength of the assembly had come down 389 to 299. It had for 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days had the conducted 11 sessions. It analyzed the constitution of around 60 countries. It also has the appointed a number of the committees to deal with the different aspects of the constitution making. Major committees include: first, drafting committee headed by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Second, the Union Powers Committee and Union Constitution Committee were headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The State Committee was also headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Third, Provincial Constitution Committee was headed by Sardar Patel. Fourth, Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and the Tribal Areas were headed by Sardar Patel. Fifth, Rules of the Procedure Committees was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. The Constitution was adopted on 26th November 1949 and it contained a preamble, 395 articles and 8 schedules. Criticism against the Constituent Assembly. Critics have argued that the Constituent Assembly was not a representative body as its members were not directly elected by the people. They have also criticized it was dominated by the Congress party. It was also it also criticized for the amount of the time they have taken from the constitution. But this criticism may not be valid because at a point in time there were no election and based on the universal adult franchise importance feature of the Indian constitution. Written constitution, parliamentary democracy, federalism, independence of judiciary, fundamental rights, directive principle of state policy, judicial review, separation of power, rule of law, secularism, democracy. For a long period, countries around the world had only witnessed dictatorships in the form of monarchy. In a dictatorship, the ruler had the absolute sovereign powers. Example, he could frame laws, implement them, and also pronounce judgments. People did not enjoy any rights or freedoms. With the Industrial Revolution, the dictatorship was replaced by the democracy. Democracy is a political system wherein people are sovereign. Important features of the democracy include: it A. It is based on the concept of rule of law. B. Equality before law. C. Sovereignty of citizen. D. Accountability of elected governments or to citizens. E. Clear-cut separation of power between the three organs of the state. F. Freedom of citizens to the exercise their choice. Constitutionalism. The essence of democracy is equal to accountability. Relationship between a state and citizen is a zero-sum game. The loss of the one is the gain of another. One person can win only at the cost of another person. The state can acquire more power only by taking away the rights of the citizens. Example, government can declare any person a criminal under the UAPA. The onus lies on the citizen to prove his or her innocence. Example, preventive detention, land reform, taxation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Subscribe.